thanks for having me, and special thanks to Carpenter. I must tell you a little bit of Carpenter story. So I'm a mechanical engineer by trade, and I started off way back Stryker Osteonics, for those that remember that name, out of school back in 1984. And one of my very first projects was to get a prototype shop up and coming right out of college, and I worked on prototype shop, and then I realized when you buy 17.4 from Carpenter, they don't heat treat it. So I wound up buying, my very first project was buying a 900-degree furnace over in Brooklyn, and look how fast we've evolved. Also, to those of you that I met out at breakfast, when you do 4 decades in the med tech business, and I love the med tech business, when you do 4 decades, you get to know a lot of people, and it's great to see how many people have been along for the ride in this business as well. So your introduction gets longer as you get older, but I guess that's okay. As I said, I am a mechanical engineer. I enjoy this. I enjoy R&D. I like innovation. I enjoy manufacturing engineering. I like bringing product to market, and I like making healthcare better. I had mentors of mine, and my mentors always told me, don't worry about how the product gets sold. If you design a product that serves a clinical need, a true clinical need, people will buy that product. And I've sort of lived my life, and we've evolved over years, right? Back in the 80s, what were we doing? Implants were breaking, hips were breaking, and people. It was bad metallurgy, it was bad design. Then we had the 90s with polyethylene issues, right? And plastic, and how plastic would oxidize in the body, and consolidation of powder and things like that, all of that. And then in the 2000s, we looked at ingrowth because people's implants needed to last longer. And then we wanted people's implants to last longer, so we did biologic ingrowth, and we worked on a lot of different 3-dimensional porous materials to actually make an implant maybe last in someone for their lifetime. And then in the 2010s and whatnot, then robotics, and right behind it, really coming fast, is digital. So when you take a look at where we've come from, it's actually been quite remarkable. And if you actually study innovation to any great extent, and you look at over that 40-year period, we've actually evolved quite a bit. We followed a lot, if we're honest, what aerospace has done on design, on materials, on computer simulation and whatnot. We've now started to share the car industry, but there's many things now that we have to deal with that you can't just borrow from aerospace and automobile. And what they don't have and we do is that we work on humans and how humans look at things. So I will give you a little bit of perspective. The challenge, if you will, of my talk was where we're going to be in a couple years. So I will do this with Stryker slides, but I do this as kind of me, the person, trying to project out. As Carolyn mentioned, I afforded the opportunity of chairing the board of trustees of my alma mater, by the way, a 14,000 student university in New Jersey Institute of Technology. For those in that area, 1 out of every 3 engineers in the state of New Jersey graduated from this university. But I get to see what's relevant, and I get to see NVIDIA come in the door. I get to see Microsoft come in the door. I get to see robot companies come in the door. So I got a nice grounding myself to always stay relevant, not living in the past, and I enjoy living in the future. And Stryker is a company, and if you're not familiar with Stryker, Stryker was started over 80 years ago. I'll show you Homer Stryker. Actually, Stryker is named after a real person, by the way. The granddaughter of Homer Stryker is still on the Stryker board of directors. So it is very family oriented. But those products that Homer Stryker did, this turning frame bed and these cast cutters, and by the way, those cast cutters are still in use. If you ever need a cast cut off and you wonder why it doesn't cut through your skin when you're cutting it off, it's actually that cast cutter. But Stryker's evolved, and this was manual things that turned and core motors. And if we look at where Stryker is as a company, Stryker is a relatively big company. Annual sales are greater than $25 billion. It's one of the largest med tech companies, and it's because of this specialization. And I show you this just so you understand a little bit about where I come from when I tie these products together later. But if you have a stroke, neurovascular, cranial, spinal, biologics and whatnot. But I'm going to focus mostly on the orthopedic side of the business. And this is it. So there's an implant part of the business in trauma, upper extremities, lower extremities, hip, knee. There's a sports medicine component to it. And then it has enabling tech, whether it's imaging that you're doing preoperatively, whether it's a robot to help out, all these things combined. So I'll focus a little bit, and my purview and my influence in the company is sort of this, but I've also spent 40 plus years basically in that area. So that just gives you an idea of Stryker, but I'm using Stryker as an example. I will say there are many great companies here. Stryker is not just the only great company in medtech, and a lot of my colleagues are doing amazing work in these competitive companies, Stryker. So I'm using Stryker, but more of the themes, if you will, are more of the themes that the industry as a whole is going to be doing. So I say this maybe on behalf of the industry. I also get the opportunity to present at analyst meetings. And analyst meetings are pretty cut and dry, right? Because they make an investment and they want to know revenue growth, they want to know margins, they want to know bottom line. And you have to really focus on what is going to matter and what makes a difference. And if you think what matters and what makes a difference, this is one of the slides that we use. I know you can't read it. I want to show it. I'm going to zoom in on it. But there's a lot of things on it we can control. These are the 10 current trends right now that are growing valuation of companies, and what marketing and R&D people strategically are looking at where this market is going to go. Things like insurance, we can't do much with it. Reimbursement from Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., we can't do much with it, right? That's CMS, and we try to influence reimbursement. But the things that we can influence out of all of this is these bottom two. And if I highlighted these bottom two, it really talks about technology advancements more towards personal health. We've been dealing with an industry that treats every 65-year-old person the same. If you were 65 years old 10, 20 years ago, you know what? You got a 65-year-old implant, didn't matter whether you're male or female, didn't matter what your BMI was, didn't matter what your activity level was, your job level, your genome, doesn't matter anything. You're 65, you got the same kind of thing. Now, we've learned that that's not so smart. Everybody's different. Everybody's knee shape different, everybody's hip shape different, and we're getting in this personalized medicine. And this personalized medicine is where this is going. One of the things, though, that I'm going to keep going back and tell you, though, is implants still matter. Implants are what's left in the human body. Implants are which give you range of motion. Implants give you quality of life. Implants you want to last a lifetime. With that said, though, that's not where the money's going. And that's not where, if you go look at the amount of money that went in venture funds last year, and if you look at where it went, less than 0.5%, less than 0.5% of new startup money in the United States went into implant development companies. It all went into technologies that have to deal with digital, technologies that have to deal with home health, technologies that have to deal with software applications, enabling tech such as robotics, and that's where this is. So we're going to ground ourselves where we're still going to maintain a strong implant group, but just know, and this is what's changing for us. Now, what's changing for our customer? Our customer, for the most part, in orthopedics, even though a hospital buys or an outpatient surgery center buys, well, it's still really the doctor. The doctor has the influence. The doctor's the one that puts the prescription out there. The surgeon is the one that has to like the product to actually get the hospital to do it. So what's happening now in the surgeon's world? Well, their world is changing dramatically. This need for patients demanding, I want to go home in 3-4 hours after my surgery, is changing the whole dynamics of care, how we look at complication rates. People are coming in, and now we are living in the last 3 years. You know, 10 years ago, who was the one for your parents that was determining the surgery, the doctor, or something like that? If it was your parent, it's probably you. People weren't as sophisticated over the 70s and 80s to how to look on the internet and whatnot. It's only of recently now people who are in their 70s and 80s are sophisticated, and they are doing research before they even go see a surgeon or before they even allow anybody touching their body in an operating room. And this is the other part. Don't miss this last part. You know, there's that old joke, right? What's the difference between a surgeon that graduated first in their medical school class and last? Nothing, because they're still called doctor. And there's no way in the United States for you to assess the complication rate, readmission rate, reoperation rate. So now these analytics are all being put together, and digital is allowing even the government to track some of these doctors and say, hey, your revision rate is really high. Do you know what you're doing? Or hospital, your infection rate is remarkable. We can now tell you all these. So this expectation that people will be monitored. But you can't hide from the fact, wherever you look, whatever newspapers you're looking at, whatever morning show you're looking at with coffee, you're seeing digital healthcare, digital healthcare, digital healthcare. It is the rage. It fits up with the trends. And then if you start to look at the technologies that's coming out of it, I'll talk about mixed reality, artificial augmented reality in a bit, but you can see the growth curve of that. But even just to show you in the middle, right? People were talking about all wearables and whatnot. That is a sleeve that's about ready to be released. that has threads in it that are sensors. And all you have to do is put that sleeve on, and while you're walking all day long, you don't even know, it's looking how you're going up and down stairs, how you're getting in and out of a car, how you're walking down a mall for 100 yards. And it just goes at night to your iPhone. And your iPhone has an app on it, and iPhone goes into a portal that connects to the cloud, and you'll be able to query. So think about it. After a procedure like a total knee, is someone getting up and off the chair? Is somebody walking enough? A physician can now tell without even seeing that patient again. So these kind of technologies, all enabled, are all changing the way we look at post-operative care, even intraoperative care, and even pre-operative assessment of a patient. And then you can't miss the fact robotics is everywhere. I mean, robotics is everywhere. And it's actually been a fascinating journey. It's been a fascinating journey for me. I know some of my colleagues at Think have been on the same journey as well. And it really is remarkable. But look what's created out of that. See that? Now there's a whole new market segment. Whoever thought 5 years ago there would be a market segment called preoperative surgical planning software for orthopedics? That is now a whole new product line, if you will. Companies are spending tens of millions of dollars to now compete on this, and you have all the companies going after it. So we're creating, because of robotics and digital, we're creating new market segments, not just products by themselves, but product categories. So let's go back to the robot for a second. This was one of the very first evaluations in the lab of the Mako robot. If you're a robot lover or not, there is a reality. There's never been a robot that entered an industry and left it. There's never been a robot that entered an industry and didn't make that industry better. Orthopedic healthcare will be no different. And when now you look at the Mako, Mako's evolved and you learn and things like that. And I'm not saying 10, 15 years from now the robot's going to look like that. We're still going to have a robot. But there's a lot of robot innovation going on in the world because of warehouse storage, warehouse handling, what Amazon is doing to reduce costs and speed. Is whole new robots being created. And robots can look in many different configurations. But for us, it's about the platform, but it's also about the use cases. It's about the application that's created. So this robot now has the ability to do hips, has the ability to do knees. We just started shoulder. We're doing spine with it. It is remarkable, and it's all about precision and accuracy. More precision and accuracy than a human can do, and it can execute a plan. Just to show you the adoption of technology, look at this curve. This is the last data we had was 2025 or 2024. We're waiting on 25 data, but you can see the green line and look at the sharp curve of robotics on the green. And also, by the way, it's not leveling off. This has so much runway to go. And look, it's cannibalizing manual, custom instrumentation, and navigation. And navigation is dropping faster than faster. And this is just in the US. If I show you Japan, Australia, if I show you England, if I show you Italy, if I show you Spain, I'll show you the exact same curve. So people are adopting it. And when you get a technology after 2 years, if you look at adoption curve and it's still going strong, that means it's doing something. Surgeons, you can say it's marketing or something like that. You can say that all you want. But surgeons don't, after about 2 years, go for that anymore, and something collects dust in the corner. That people are still buying this. So what's the proof? I'll show you. We released publicly up to 2025 the Mako robot sales. Look at the Mako robot sales. This thing is not stopping. Right now, 65% of total knees that Stryker sells in the United States goes in robotically. 65%. I'll give you another number. Monthly, in the world, per month, 45,000 robotic procedures a month. 45,000, and that's increasing dramatically because outcomes are good, patient satisfaction is good, complication rates are down. You're not going to do it. There's no reason I should design an implant anymore with manual instruments. Let the robot be the instrument set. And then I could do different things. And I could do concave surfaces because of 3D printing and match an implant now to a complex shape or a smaller incision or a different surgical approach that's less traumatic or painful to the patient. That's where the future goes. And robots make hard cases easier. This is a revision case, as you can see. Look at the polyethylene wear in this cup. So you see the femur, you see the acetabulum, look at the center of the head. The center of the head's not in the right spot. This is a complicated case because you have osteolysis, so you have some bone death around the outside of the cup. You have to restore the center of rotation correctly to get that person's leg length and range of motion right. How did we used to do that manually? You went to the best surgeon who was experienced on the best amount of cases and knew what they were doing and spend the time. But for the most part, people walked out of a case like this with 1 centimeter shorter leg. People walked out and they walk upstairs for the very first time and they dislocated because the femoral implant impacted against the acetabular shell edge. Now, with robotics, this is pre-planned. This is before you even go in the operating room. You understand the way the procedure is going to look. Essentially, this is your post-operative X-ray before you even do the case, and this is the plan that goes to the robot. Then the robot, with the precision and accuracy to the physician's plan, actually will execute that case, and look how good we get. Not only did you restore the center, but the robot also knows the bone mass density, where the screws are going into, and will actually tell the surgeon what's the length of screw and where the screw should go, and that screw will have adequate purchase to actually hold that shell. So we've evolved in a way where this now becomes a tool. Why would you not want this? But again, it is that implant that's being left. So let me touch on the implant. Implant by itself, I must tell you, as I sit here, I'm disappointed in myself. Honestly, when I started with 3D printing and working on it in 2006. I thought by now we would use 3D printing the way 3D printing is supposed to be done. The purpose of 3D printing is not just to make implants for more ingrowth and things like that. The purpose of 3D printing is to make implants that don't look like implants we have today. We are not restricted by a lathe, a mill, some type of turning. We can actually make anything in our head. Concave, convex surfaces, smaller. We could build a ship in a bottle, but we've not really leveraged that. But we've learned a lot, so we are incrementally moving forward, and I like that. But with the combination of a robot that can do a preparation that a regular broach rasp can't do, we should now really challenge ourselves to think about how do we disrupt this industry, make smaller incisions in people, less traumatic, let someone go home after outpatient surgery in 3 hours and feel good the next day. You know, it's aspirational, but why not? So Stryker's invested big in this, as some of you know. This is our Cork, Ireland facility. Some of the people you saw here on the stage get the credit for this. And this is actually a remarkable. If you took a peek inside of one of the very few pictures I can show you, if you are an additive manufacturing lover, you would be impressed just by the volume of equipment that's in there. And our tibial components that we do there, some custom implants that we do there, acetabular shells that we do there. It is a remarkable facility and a remarkable technology. We're now to a point where we can control this laser, single laser, dual lasers, look at E-beam, look at other different ways. And we could take powder, additive, subtractive, and this technology and getting it to scale is what allows in this market. Additive manufacture by itself is still very expensive, which has been some of the limitation. Equipment, not as much as the powder. The powder and the cost of the powder has not dropped dramatically enough that you can actually show your cost of goods is equivalent. But you can see this for Stryker is remarkable. But let me tie it into digital for a little bit. If you take a look at some of this equipment now there's digital driving of this equipment. We could take files, build plates and whatnot, put it in the equipment, look at the monitoring equipment, time of the laser. We could look at preventive maintenance on it. We could look at level loading these things, maximizing a build plate. We could look at downtime, when equipment needs to be maintenance. So all of that still, even for a company as big as Stryker, you really need to leverage that to be able to keep your costs controllable. But this digital is going to expand. We're going to see digital on instrument trays, and we're going to be tracking instrument tray inventory so we could be more effective with the inventory and know exactly where it is. Not just instrument trays, by the way. Same goes for Stryker hospital beds. Where are all these hospital beds we sell? But all this tracking and all this digital is a big part of our life. So as we talk about that, let's talk about a big part of a life, how it affects R&D, and what we're thinking about digital and artificial intelligence. I will sit here and tell you that AI is talked about too much right now. I will tell you people oversold AI 2 years ago. I will tell you companies ran forward with it and started talking way too early and set expectations that they could not deliver. It needs to be regulated. It needs to be safe. It needs to be without bias. It needs to have the proper data sets. It is not easy digital. Digital has done remarkable things. If you look at Philips, GE Healthcare, Siemens, what they've done on tumor recognition and what they've done with radiology is remarkable. But all these kind of things is remarkable. I could tell you from a design perspective, it's not designing implants for us. It's a long way from even being able to, or even we trust it. We want to get to the point where it makes a design engineer more productive. If we can make somebody 10 or 15% more productive because AI is the tool for them, sign us up. We're doing that. So that's really our objective. It's not to get rid of jobs. We're still hiring. And in fact, our R&D count is higher than ever before. It is to make more productivity, so maybe we can get a product out sooner, reduce the amount of iterations, do virtual prototyping, all those kind of things that have huge impact. And if you follow AI, you're probably confused, and I don't blame you. The definitions and the terms everybody likes to throw around are a little bit high, but don't focus as much on that. Focus on the adoption of it. So it's been a little slow. You're probably using ChatGPT all the time. I used ChatGPT. I had like sniffles like 3 weeks ago. I want to know if I had COVID or something like that, so I used ChatGPT. You know, it's getting better. It's getting better. It's learning off my questions, though, which I don't appreciate, but it's getting better and better. But when you look at all this Gen AI and large language model, it's been a little slow for the adoption for design. It's been a little slow in healthcare. And by the way, it's not the FDA. The FDA has been unbelievably collaborative with us on AI. And the FDA is doing a really good job on AI. The data sets are the problem. Us getting data, patient data. Ask yourself this great question. Who owns the data? Who owns patient data if you have an operation? You sign a lot of forms when you're there, right? Well, some people think the patient owns the data regardless. Some people think the physician owns the data. Some people think it's the hospital owns the data. Some people think it's actually the government owns the data. In fact, Kennedy came out just 2 days ago with a position on vaccines where he'd like to look at everybody's data. So this whole data thing needs to be resolved in the United States. On AdvaMed as a committee, we're working on that, but just know that's a problem. But where is it being adopted with surgeons? You would think surgeons would have resistance to it because maybe it's going to take away their trade. Not so much. You use AI for a task that somebody doesn't like to do, they will adopt AI so fast. And there are companies that have been smart about that. Don't take a surgeon on the clinician and make them AI making all the decisions on the patient. But if you could tell a surgeon you don't have to write notes anymore, and if you could tell a surgeon the hospital accepts it, and if you could tell a surgeon the insurance company accepts it for reimbursement, they will adopt it fast. 60% of all orthopedic surgeons are already using AI now for note-taking, because it's a task that they didn't want to do, and it relieved them of many times, by the way, and they'll argue they get more revenue because they get to see more volume of patients. So it is remarkable. So it's in their life. Surgeons are not afraid of AI. Surgeons are highly intelligent. They understand the value of the AI. It's just they have a high threshold for trust, and we're okay with it. Okay, so now think of a company like Stryker, big Fortune 250 company. What are we doing? Well, we were kind of slow until we saw this the end of last year. And when we saw that Microsoft CEO finally stated what we thought, that Microsoft is using AI to write 30% of its code, that was remarkable. That was really remarkable. All companies, you have to look, if Microsoft is one of the largest companies in the world, and if they're using it for this, why are we not using it? So now we started to incorporate it in a bigger way. And then you also have to be concerned about NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA, remarkable company, absolutely remarkable company. I've had the opportunity to have dinner with their CEO. I had the opportunity to present our challenges in healthcare. Hey, by the way, just so you want to know how the CEO thinks, and he's a smart, he's a great guy, Jensen, really great guy. He started that company, decades ago, so I'm happy for him. He's an engineer, he worked hard at this, right? But I say, okay, these hospitals are unbelievably inefficient, and it's hard for us to work in the hospital. So how can we modify things like that? His position is, you can't. Just knock down the hospital and build a new one. So with that kind of philosophy, he's thinking the same for robotics. He's thinking the same everywhere. And things are moving around pretty quick. And then in combination with some NVIDIA framework and some Microsoft and Google framework, Mayo Clinic just announced last month that they have now AI in all surgeons, and they could track the time of a procedure, who the support staff is, who the surgeon is, and complexity of the patient case. 4 things. And they could predict the time of the procedure. And they could predict who is best to serve and support in that procedure, including perioperative staff. and they now do the level loading of ORs, and they can get more procedures now per day out of the same fixed cost, people and overhead. So if they get one more procedure per day out of every operating room, that is revenue that they're getting on the same cost basis. So they're already incorporating AI. And then if you think a little bit further, and then you think of all Stryker, and we'll just use Stryker equipment, all of this equipment in the hospital is there now. All this equipment is capable of having data on it. What have we done with the data? Nothing. We've not connected the equipment. We just leave it there. You've got individual data on patients. It's just sitting there. We've never really thought about using it in a big way. So we have a lot of digital products. They've just sort of been standalone, like you would buy something for your home, put it here, and then you buy something for another room and put it here. We never thought big picture, so now we're forced to think big picture. So now let's use one of those digital products, planning software, with 3D printing, because implant matters. So let me show you this, and this is additive manufacturing implant. It is AI-driven design, and is for patients to serve a clinical need that was not done before. So this is a reverse shoulder. If you see the glenoid part, the part in the scapula, and you see the part that's sticking out where the screws are, and you see the bottom picture of it, that is an augment. That specific augment has an angle to it, unique to a patient, a size periphery to it, unique to a patient, screw location for fixation, but to get the center of rotation in the way. Before, people would have to try to cut bone and make bone and things like that. Let me show you the value of AI in 3D printing, if there ever was. This is a product that's released. There's been thousands of these cases. So here's the complication. The healthy glenoid, the part in your scapula, right? It's kind of like a ball in a little socket. Look at that. You see the healthy part. And then you have people with severe arthritis that go over a period of time, or you had an implant in before and you go all the way over to the right, and that is a revision case, and now you got this bone loss. Okay, so what does a surgeon do? A surgeon does this on their laptop at home. A surgeon will get a CT scan, load it up to a Stryker cloud. CT scan will be made into a bone model. Surgeon logs in, sees a bone model in it, and I'm going to show you what that planning software looks like. AI will design the implant based on where that surgeon wants the center of rotation. AI will determine the bone loss. AI will determine the periphery. AI will determine what the model will look like. They'll go to those 3D printers I just showed you in Ireland. It gets ordered. Custom instruments get made as well, 3D printed. It gets shipped in a matter of weeks, and there's so few humans involved in this. So this is what a surgeon logs in, as a surgeon would see. This is a software package. This is a surgeon doing this right now, not an engineer, and a surgeon, and it's all off AI. AI, once the surgeon puts that, AI will now build automatically, based on that patient's needs and bone loss, will build the custom implant that you see on the pictures on the right. And it is remarkable. That's a 3D model off a CT scan of an actual patient and trying to restore the center. And this is all collaborative software. It's called Blueprint. And it is just remarkable of what can be done, looking at bone loss, looking at where contact points should be, looking at depth of bone screws. And a surgeon will then come up, and after the design is printed, or design is planned, and the custom instruments, just like this is all AI made this. AI just made that blue augment. That gets shipped over to Ireland. It gets put in a box. A couple of weeks to have the surgery. Perfect restoration of that head center. Perfect. So AI combined with planning, combined with digital, cloud-based, combined with 3D printing, that is a good use of 3D printing implant to solve a clinical need. We're going to further evolve that, and now that Stryker gets an ecosystem started that surgeons want to go on, why are we not doing hips? Why are we not doing robotic planning? Why are we not doing custom instrumentation planning, custom implant planning, all through it, and make it a common look and feel? For whether you're doing shoulders, whether you're doing foot and ankle, whether you're doing trauma, whether you're doing sports medicine, that is the future. All this digital enabled. So think about all of this done before the patient even goes in the operating room, where it used to be you go in the operating room with 7 trays that you had to open up, and then you find the right thing and you hope that surgeon has enough skill. And now surgeons have realized we want to know more about the patient. We have to know more about the patient. And we have to know now, what is the really, everyone has different extent of arthritis. You have rheumatoid arthritis, you have osteoarthritis, you have post-traumatic arthritis, sports-related injury arthritis. What's the BMI of the patient? What's the bone mass density? Is the person osteoporotic? What's the expectation of the patient? Is a UPS truck driver at 72 years old that wants to keep lifting? And you got to understand, and now we're going to take that into planning, and that'll do the plan that'll go to enabling tech in their operating room, and now we're post-operative care. You know, honestly, Stryker and some of my other colleague companies in here, what do we care about? You open up the implant box in the operating room, you bought the implant, we'll see you later. Didn't matter what the patient looked like beforehand, didn't matter what the patient looked like afterward, didn't matter what the clinical results were unless you came back and complained to us. Now, we are held accountable to a higher standard. So because of that, we are now looking at orthopedic data in a different way. And all of these things contribute to orthopedic data in some way. Now, when you take all that data, let's start off with the pre-planning part. This is auto-segmentation. We now could take a CT scan. It goes right up to our cloud, automatically, AI generates a three-dimensional image of that person's actual bone arthritis, any abnormalities, and all. We can do alignment, we can do things, and we control that. So we're using it for shoulders, we're using it for hips and knees, and it's going to keep expanding. But these are trained, by the way, if you're curious and you're an AI person, start off on training these on 15,000 cases. People don't look all that different inside. And now through machine learning, it's just getting better and better over time. Then you say, okay, well, what data can you possibly get from the operating room entry that can train your models? You know, the surgeon puts the implant in, right? And then goes home, and then the surgeon gives you some feedback, right? Those days are done. We're no longer into just unqualified data. This now is the data. I showed you just a total knee example, but I could show you sports medicine. I could show you. This is the type of data that we're able to capture. And it's now to look at not just specifically, but we want to help with OR efficiency. And hospitals which are losing money, maybe we can help them understand how many people need to be in the operating room. We want to look at implant alignment. Everybody shouldn't have the same implant alignment. Implant choice, what Stryker implant is best for that? How can we make that procedure better? How can we make it more efficiency? Is there something we could reduce on time? And then how can we save money on inventory and actually be better and know before the case what implants are needed? We're pretty good on that robotic surgery. We're 99%. We could get the exact size, and if I give you one above and one below, we can do 100%. We don't need to bring all those min and max sizes in anymore. That cost us a fortune that we just wind up throwing away. Okay, so now what does this data do for a total knee? I'll show you this, but this is a different way to think. This is all preoperatively now. A surgeon on a very specific patient will be able then to go to their iPhone and be able to check all of this now. Where's the strong bone? Where's the not the strong bone? Where's the bone that grew extra from osteoarthritis? What sizing difference does it make? What's the alignment? What's the angle? This is all data. There's an expectation on orthopedic companies now that if we want to be competitive, an implant alone won't do it. You have to provide this on the patient, and this dramatically improves outcomes. Let me take that middle one. If you see the middle with all the bone that grew, we just patented this, so we're kind of enjoying it. You know, if you ever seen an x-ray of someone with arthritis, it's really ugly. Not only did the cartilage go away, but the bone grows really weird. Do you know how many times a surgeon will size that implant to that bone that grew, that's not even a functional bone, and put too large of an implant in? Do you know how many times someone closes up and says, I still got this pain in the back of my leg? It's because the surgeon didn't see there was extra bone growth back there and didn't remove it in surgery. Now, preoperatively, we're able to show a surgeon what bone should be removed, and we do this AI on the cloud. There's not a human that gets involved in this. We've trained these models, and this will make the outcome better. We'll size implants better, but it'll also show in the back of the knee where there's bone that the surgeon can't see that needs to be removed. So you get a lot of benefits. That's for the surgeon. Benefits for the patient. This is relatively simple. It's not ChatGPT because ChatGPT takes into account everything in the world and combines it and doesn't always give you the right answer. So what we did is we took 300 Mako peer review publications. So it had to be a peer review journal, and we didn't pick the publication. So it's not a Stryker consultant or something like that. We picked the top 300 cited in other paper articles that's credible by other people who are using it for citation. And this is a patient entering the data. This is a prototype, but it's actual patient. Ask any questions you want. And this patient's asking, what's the blood loss compared to conventional knees from robotic knees? And it's only working on a trained environment of these 300 papers. And because we're regulated, I know 5 seconds sounds like forever nowadays, right? For the thing that actually think, but then it comes and it'll actually answer. And this is AI off the paper. So you ask any question and it comes up with its own answer. And then because we're regulated, it cites what 3 of the top papers that comes closest to it. So this is good for patients as well. So it's the data. What do we do with the data in publications? Now, one of the other exciting areas that we do with the data is on mixed reality. It's HoloLens on the bottom. Many of you I know are familiar with HoloLens. Microsoft correctly took it off the market. They didn't evolve it. It was too clunky, cartoonish pictures. That's Apple Vision Pro. If you have not seen Apple Vision Pro glasses, go to an Apple store and put it on. It has 7 cameras. It's like 2 4D TVs in your eyes. You can actually FaceTime somebody wearing it. I could be anywhere, FaceTime, and while they're walking around the street, they could see me in the upper corner, and I could see what they're looking at. It really is remarkable. We've had some experience with HoloLens, and this is actually a shoulder case, and we got regulatory approval on this, but you see how you can make these models, if the surgeon's wearing this, suspend above the patient. So kind of okay, but did it add enough value, gave more information. This, I'm going to show you, is an Apple created video. And by the way, when Apple creates a video of your product or prototype and puts it in the Apple store for like 30 days, that's kind of cool. This is looking at pre-planning through the glass. So surgeon would have the glasses, they'd be home. This is pre-planning a case. And as they pre-plan the case, they're now sitting and they're just moving fingers and things like that. But this is the actual image they're looking at. It's not a cartoon. The rendering of it's gorgeous. I mean, it's really spectacular. So you can see that now. We're going to take that in the operating room eventually. It's a little bigger. We're waiting for the next, I get it. But now look how much the surgeon looks down at the wound, then up at a Stryker monitor, and then back down at the wound and at a Stryker monitor, right? Why do we have surgeons take their eyes off for the 7 silly Stryker monitors that are all around the operating room? We want that surgeon focused on the incision. This allows the surgeon focused on it, and then afterwards, right out of that, it can go also into it. So more information on the case, and I'll show you. This is the prototype stuff. I'll show you just because I thought some people I know here would be interested in it. But look at this. This is where you're watching Vision Pro, but you can make anything suspend where you want in a room. And this is actual. This is not made up. This is actual looking through the glasses and we recorded it. You can hover things, move it around. You can make a custom cockpit in the operating room for that specific surgeon, hovered right around the wound for what someone wants to see. You can bring more information on that patient to that surgeon for that surgeon's decision making. It is really remarkable. Okay, so you see what's going on in the operating room, right? Now, let's go beyond the operating room and let's think of the hospital. What's one of our challenges? Our challenge is we can't help hospitals enough stay strong. What's one of our concerns for the future? Hospitals don't stay strong. The reality of it is there's too many hospitals that are not making money in the United States. The reality is, do you know so many hospitals operate on 2% profit margin per year? 2%. If there's any cut in CMS by 1%, that goes down to 1.2%. They will not invest in capital. They will not keep their up to speed with technology. They will start to fail even faster. So you see this consolidation of hospitals. You see these large groups of hospitals being created. So Stryker now wants to get involved into helping for orthopedics, but the orthopedic patient. So you're going to see this. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'd be disingenuous if I didn't show you this. Some Stryker people are seeing this for the first time too, by the way. This is going to be our new tagline. We're going to transform, and Stryker is going to get into the business of smart hospitals, connecting all the hospitals with the operating room, and then connecting all our equipment with it. And then all this now is not individual equipment sitting there. It's all individual tied to an ortho procedure. How often did the total knee patient get out of their bed and whatnot? So you say, okay, Stryker, you're kind of lucky, right? You're kind of lucky that you got all this equipment, so it's kind of cute. You're putting it all together, but it's just equipment being put together. That's a slide for marketing. For R&D slide, no, it's not cute. It's not a gimmick. This is how I'm going to start showing smart hospital in the future. It's what equipment, what data is coming out of the equipment, what type of data, then what is the data being used for, and who is it being used for? Hospital administrators, is it used for nursing, is it used for the patient, or is it used for the surgeon? This is real live stuff. We will learn more about a continuum of care of a specific patient with a specific indication than we ever knew before, and surgeons will be able to reduce complications. Someone goes in for a total knee. Now we're going to take electronic health records in. How often your orthopedic asks you, are you a diabetic? Yeah, really little, right? Because they care that you want to walk and they're looking at an x-ray. Do you know the complications from mismanagement of food and sugar in the operating room? Do you know that's like in the top 5 complications for an orthopedic patient to go back for readmission to a hospital? But now all of this with smart care, we'll be able to do it. Now, I want you to take a close look at this camera overhead. That camera, that's an ambient intelligence camera. Ambient intelligence means not only is it just taking video of you, but it's knowing it's you, or it's knowing you're walking around, or it knowing what you're doing, or surgical gestures by how much you move your hand. And how much you move your hand, you can do a lot of things with this. You could tell if a patient gets in and out of a bed. You could tell if a patient's getting visited. You could tell in a nursing home if a nurse's aide is really going to check on a patient or not. And you can have a record of that. So let me show you a use case. That's our first use case that we're putting in play right now. We got a hospital bed with sensors on it. We got a hospital bed that knows when someone gets up or not. We have that pendant in the middle that you see a nurse wearing. That's Vocera. That can actually tie in electronic health records right to that person. And you can speak into it. You can do other things. We're thinking about virtual nurses that are highly skilled. So a virtual nurse or a highly skilled nurse doesn't have to be on every floor to resolve the nursing crisis. And you can have one centered somewhere within the hospital. It could be looking at the data. It could be talking to the nurse. It could see what's going on with the camera. It could see if a person got up. It could see if the patient's breathing, if the patient's in distress, all at the same time. And you will provide so much information. You will reduce complications in a dramatic way. You will even save lives. You will save lives. And we'll take that camera into the operating room. And if you take a look inside the operating room, here you go. And you can see this is ambient intelligence. It knows who has gloves on, who doesn't have gloves on. It knows who's a doctor. It knows what the equipment is. It knows what instruments they were pulling up. And we could actually track, do we have instruments that no one ever uses? Or a surgeon X doesn't use it and we don't need to put it in, and we can reduce the amount of trays. We can then de-identify people and even project in images like this. We don't have to actually have it projected. We can look, and we can look in ways where it's a really dark picture you can see, but we could see and we could track them, and we can make green who are nurses. We can make blue who are sterile nurses. And that's going to be remarkable because now we could do procedures better. We could say where the surgeon should stand, where a Mako robot should go, where a patient should be, where the anesthesiologist should be, and can we reduce the nurses in the OR by 1 to relieve the nursing crisis. This is the type of data that helps you with it. Okay, then the last part of the technology, I have to tell you because I was asked for 20 years from now, but I think it's going to be 3 years from now to 5 years from now. You get used to robots in the OR, get used to robots helping. Robots right now, this is a pharmacy robot that'll actually deliver pharmacy. This is in play in certain institutions. So these humanoid things, there's 350 humanoid companies in the world right now building humanoids. I'm actually still not sure why a humanoid needs to look like a human, and in some cases why it all needs legs, but anyway, so be it. But it's going to be a big business. I'll show you this is a case that I think is kind of cool. This is an NVIDIA robot, and this NVIDIA robot's meant for pediatric care. And this NVIDIA robot talks, and it will actually look at the child and will escort the child with the nurse into physical therapy if they're really hurt. And they may be 8, 9 years old, and we'll stay then and play music to them and actually talk to them while they're getting care. And it's just a robot. So this is already in 3 hospitals right now in evaluation. It's real. And then we got the old humanoids. This is my favorite robot. This is one out of Texas, so that's why I show this one. This one's so good. It's got all the degrees of freedom. It's 5'8". It weighs about 180 pounds. It's got 2 computer vision eyes on it. It's got an NVIDIA Edge device for computing in it. It's connected to the cloud as well. It can move around, it can walk, it could do somersaults, and it can manage inventory if you want. And it could actually sterilize inventory, clean inventory. It could work 24/7. It doesn't know about holidays. Plug it in every 8 hours and it's happy as can be. But with computer vision, barcodes, things like that, it knows where all the inventory is, and you will see that. So, taking a step back, I show you this picture. This was the very first total knee Mako robot procedure done at Holy Cross Hospital in Fort Lauderdale in in 2016. So it's commercialized total knee. That's where that graph started to take up. What a difference even over the last 10 years. It's only been 10 years. What a difference the 10 years has been. And now when you think about innovation, and I talk to R&D groups, this is what R&D groups need to worry about. You need to worry about the pre-op. You need to worry about robotics, workflow, how you're going to visualize. Implants still matter, but so does post-op matters. This is a new way of thinking about R&D. So I showed you the picture from 10 years ago. This is the new picture for orthopedics. Implants are a given. The expectation is we're providing good state-of-the-art implants. This is the way orthopedic looks. And it's not just the robot, by the way. It's the robot combined with digital and everything else associated with that. This is the picture you're thinking. Okay, there's a cart, and there's a cart. Now you have mixed reality hooked up. You got an NVIDIA device for computing. You have the camera that I showed you on the wall. Look at the change in 10 years. It is a remarkable change. Robotics is a remarkable adoption in that 10-year curve. But this is really remarkable. We are now to a point where you say, ouch, my knee hurts. You go to the surgeon, CT scan, goes to Stryker Cloud, automatic segmentation, automatic. And look at the rendering capabilities we'll have in the future. Look at that knee. That's an actual patient's knee. We did off a CT scan. We stitch slices together. Look at the quality of the rendering. Then we'll pick the appropriate Stryker implant, size, and location it should be for that individual patient. And then we'll simulate range of motion as well using AI to make sure this is all before the procedure. And then through the cloud, it'll go Wi-Fi or 5G enabled right into the robot itself. So I leave you with this image of this is the future. Robotics of some kind of configuration, clinical software, the use of population health data, and then all the devices that are going to be developed are how you show that data, how you make it usable for it while being safe, while being reliable, and while you can trust it. We've had an amazing journey. Omtech celebrating its 20 years. We've had an amazing journey over the last 20 years. New materials, 3D printing, robotics. Now it's the time not to look at those in isolation. It's a time to what is the benefit of putting all of those together into one package with the overlay of digital innovation to further enhance those. So as great as the last 10, 20 years have been, I am actually more excited. We have more tools available to us now than we ever had before, and the computational power is amazing. I'm more excited about this journey we're going to continue for the next 20 years plus. So thanks for listening. Be excited. The future is going to be a good one. Thank you.